The rain fell like needles on my bare skin. I knelt in the mud of the marketplace, chains on my wrists heavier than the weight of my despair. Around me, merchants called out their wares, silk from the south, spices from distant lands, and people. Always people. Next lot, the auctioneer's voice cut through the icy wind like a rusted blade. A young woman, capable of work, obedient. Lies. All lies. I was neither young in spirit nor capable of work. 3 winters I'd spent in chains, passed from hand to hand like a broken coin no one truly wanted. My body was emaciated, my hands trembled with fever, and my soul, I'd lost that somewhere between the second and third owner. 10 gold pieces as opening bid! The auctioneer yanked my chain, forced me to stand. My legs nearly gave out. Silence. The crowd studied me with the same indifference one might regard a rotten apple. Too thin, too weak, too broken. 5 gold pieces! The auctioneer's voice grew shrill, desperate. Still nothing. 3 gold pieces, suitable for field work. They wouldn't even take her for the brothel, someone called from the crowd. Laughter surged like dirty water. I lowered my head, my platinum blonde hair, once my only pride, hanging greasy and matted over my face. Perhaps it was better this way. Perhaps no one would buy me, and the auctioneer would simply forget me, leave me in the mud where worthless things belong. 1 gold piece! The auctioneer's voice nearly broke. Who'll give me 1? 10. The voice came from the back, deep and firm as the rumble of distant mountains. The crowd fell silent. I didn't lift my head. And what did it matter? 10 gold pieces was a cruel joke. Too much for what I was, yet laughably little for a human life. The Lord bids 10! I have spoken. Footsteps. Heavy boots trudging through mud. Then I saw them. Boots of dark brown leather, worn but solid. My gaze traveled upward. Leather breeches. A belt with iron buckles. A cloak of heavy wolf fur hanging from broad shoulders. And then his face. Golden blonde hair, wild and untamed, fell to his shoulders. A beard framed his angular jaw, but it was his eyes that held me captive. Ocean blue, so intense I forgot to breathe for a moment. They didn't assess me like merchandise. They looked at me like something alive. He extended his hand, and coins clinked into the auctioneer's greedy palm. 10 gold pieces gleaming like small suns in the gray light. She belongs to me. Not a question. Not a negotiation. Simply a fact. The auctioneer hastily unhooked my chains from the post and pressed them into the stranger's hand. I waited for him to yank them, to drag me through the mud like the others before him. Instead, he let the chains fall. They landed with a dull thud in the dirt. Can you walk? His voice was rougher than his appearance suggested, but not unkind. I stared at him, unable to answer. Was this a trap? A test? Can you walk? Each word separate, slow, as if speaking to someone who didn't understand his language. I nodded, trembling. A lie. I didn't know if my legs would carry me. He studied me a moment longer. Then, without warning, he bent down and lifted me. Simply lifted me as if I weighed nothing. Not like a grown woman, but like a child. What? My voice broke. Quiet. Not harsh. Almost gentle. Save your strength. He carried me away from the market, away from the gaping stares and mocking laughter. His cloak smelled of smoke, salt, and something wild. Something like freedom. A scent I'd almost forgotten. Why? The word came out as a whisper. He didn't answer immediately. Only when we reached the city limits, where a mighty stallion waited, black as night itself, did he speak. Because no one else would. Chapter 2. The Journey. The first 2 days blurred into a fevered haze. I remember the movement of the horse, the warmth of his cloak wrapped around me, and his voice repeating the same thing over and over. Breathe. Just breathe. On the 3rd day, my head finally cleared. We'd stopped in a forest among tall pines that stood like ancient guardians over us. The sky was gray, heavy with unfall snow, and the air cut into my lungs. But for the first time in months, I wasn't freezing. He'd built a fire, not a small flame, but a proper campfire that threw warmth and light in all directions. I sat on a pile of furs wrapped in his cloak, watching him. Kalen. That's what he'd called himself when I'd finally found the strength to ask. The name meant mighty in the old tongue. It suited him, the broad shoulders, the scarred hands, the way he moved as if the whole world belonged to him. He was cooking something over the fire in a small kettle. The smell made my empty stomach cramp painfully. Meat, herbs, real food, not the rotten scraps thrown to slaves. Almost ready, he murmured without looking up. "Where are you taking me?" I finally asked. "Home." "Your home?" "Our home." He corrected me as if it were obvious. Our. The word felt foreign in my head, as if it had lost meaning or I'd forgotten how to use it. He ladled soup into a wooden bowl and came to sit beside me, not too close, not too far, and held the spoon to my lips. I began, but my trembling hands betrayed me. "I know." His voice was calm, without judgment. "But you don't have to." The first spoonful of soup was like liquid gold, warm, rich, with a hint of rosemary and salt. I closed my eyes, and against my will, tears ran down my cheeks. "Too hot?" he asked, immediately concerned. I shook my head. I couldn't explain it wasn't the heat, but the kindness, the fact that someone was feeding me without first demanding I earn it. He fed me in silence, spoonful by spoonful, until the bowl was empty. "Why did you buy me?" The question escaped before I could stop it. Kalen set the empty bowl aside and stared into the fire. The flames danced in his ocean eyes, turning them to liquid light. "Tell me," he began slowly, "has anyone ever told you that you're worthless?" My breath caught. Every day. "And did you believe it?" I couldn't answer. The truth burned in my throat like acid. "You shouldn't." He turned to me, and the intensity in his gaze made me tremble. 10 gold pieces. That's all they thought you were worth. But do you know what I saw? I shook my head. Someone who survived. Someone who went through hell and is still breathing. He paused. "That is priceless." The world blurred. I blinked rapidly, refusing to cry again, but his words had touched something inside me I'd thought long dead. "I'm useless," I whispered. "I can't work. I'm weak, sick. You're healing." He interrupted, his voice firmer. "Now sleep. The rest comes later." He spread more furs beside the fire, then lay down on them without hesitation, between me and the dark forest like a living protective wall. "Sleep," he repeated. "I'll keep watch. No one will touch you as long as I breathe. I swear it." And that night, wrapped in warmth and the steady breathing of a stranger who treated me like treasure, I slept without nightmares for the first time in years. Chapter 3. Home. 5 days the journey lasted. 5 days in which I learned to be human again. Kalen didn't speak much, but his actions spoke volumes. He shared his food, gave me the warmest spot by the fire, and when I was too weak to ride, he carried me on his back as if I were no burden, but something precious. On the 6th day, we reached his land. I'd expected a castle, cold stone walls, dark dungeons, the smell of dampness and fear. Instead, "Welcome home," Kalen said quietly. Before us rose a massive hall of dark wood and stone, nestled among tall pines and snow-covered mountains. Smoke rose from a great chimney, and through carved windows I saw warm golden light. It smelled of resin, roasted meat, of life. "Ours," he said again. He led me through the great wooden doors, and the warmth that greeted me was like an embrace. A large fireplace dominated the main room, surrounded by long tables and carved benches. Furs covered the floors, and weapons, shields, and antlers hung on the walls. And men and women, his people, raised their heads as we entered. Their gazes wandered over me. Curious, but not hostile. "This is Alara." Kalen introduced me, his hand light on my back. "She will live here with us from now on." Murmurs, nods. Then someone spoke, a young man barely older than me with a mocking grin. "Where did you find her, Kalen? She looks like a drowned dog." The laughter that followed wasn't malicious, but it cut nonetheless. I lowered my head, pulled the cloak tighter. "Björn." Kalen's voice was quiet, but there was steel in it. "One more word, and you'll spend the next moon with the sheep in the north field." The laughter died. "Ilara." Kalen turned to me, his voice gentle again. "Come. You need to wash and rest. If you want to see how this alpha heals my soul, and how warmth and water wash away not just years of dirt, but also shame, then stay with me. Subscribe now, because these next moments will touch your heart as they touched mine." The bathhouse lay apart from the main hall, built over a natural hot spring. Steam filled the room, and water shimmered invitingly in a large stone basin. "I'll leave you in peace," Kalen said, turning to go. "Wait." My voice trembled. I can't. My hands, they still shake." Shame burned through me at my own weakness. Kalen regarded me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I understand. May I help you?" The question was so honest, so free of any falsehood, that I could only nod. He helped me from the filthy dress, the rags that remained to me. I expected to see lust in his eyes, desire. Instead, I saw only concentration, gentleness, when he guided me into the water. I hissed at the heat, but it was good heat. Healing heat. And then he began to wash me. His hands were large, rough from work, but incredibly careful. He dipped a cloth in the water, soaped it, and began washing away years of grime. From my arms, my shoulders, my back. "You have scars," he murmured quietly. His fingers traced a particularly deep one on my shoulder. "Who did this to you?" "Many." The truth was too heavy for lies. He said nothing more, but I felt his jaw tighten. His touches became, if possible, even gentler. When he washed my hair, I felt something inside me give way. Years of dirt, of pain, of shame, all flowing away with the water. The platinum blonde strands I'd thought dead began to shine, transforming into silvery moonlight. "By the old gods," Kalen whispered almost reverently. "Your hair, it's like moonlight on snow." He wrapped me in fresh, warm clothing, a soft linen shirt and wool tunic that smelled of lavender. "Your room," he said, leading me to a chamber. Not large, but cozy. A bed with thick furs, a small table, a window overlooking the snowy mountains. "My room is next door," he added, "if you need anything." "Why are you doing all this?" The question broke from me. He stood in the doorway, his back to me. "Because you deserve it." "But I'm nothing." He turned, and the intensity in his eyes stole my breath. "Stop making yourself small. You're here. You're safe. And starting tomorrow, we'll begin showing you who you really are." Chapter 4. Worth weeks passed like a dream. The older woman, Freya, took me under her wing. She taught me how to bake bread, sort herbs, sew simple dresses. Not because I had to, but because she saw I needed something. Purpose. Occupation for my hands and mind. And Kalen watched. Not intrusively, not possessively, but I felt his gaze, warm as sunlight. Every time I smiled, every time I laughed, every time I took another step back into life. Then came the evening of celebration, the winter festival, an old tradition honoring the past year and welcoming the coming one. Kalen had given me a new dress, deep blue like the night sky, with silver embroidery that shimmered in candlelight. I felt beautiful for the first time in years. I sat beside him at the main table, my heart hammering nervously. Then a man stood, older, with gray beard and distrustful eyes. One of Kalen's advisors. "Kalen?" he began, his voice cutting through the laughter. "May I ask what role this woman plays in your household?" The hall fell silent. "She sits at your table, wears fine cloth, is treated like an honored guest. And yet," the man made a dismissive gesture, "we all know you bought her for 10 gold pieces at the slave market. A 10 gold piece slave sits at our table." Shame burned in my cheeks. I lowered my head, wanted to disappear. But then I felt Kalen's hand on mine. Firm, warm, unyielding. "Stand up, Alara." "What?" I whispered, frightened. "Stand up. I want everyone to see you." With trembling knees, I stood, my hand still in his, an anchor in a stormy sea. Kalen rose as well. His presence filled the room like a storm. "You ask what role she plays," his voice thundered through the hall. "Then let me answer you. Yes, I bought her for 10 gold pieces. 10 ridiculous pieces of metal that the idiots at that market thought she was worth." He turned to me, and his eyes burned. "But gold?" He laughed bitterly. "Gold is just metal. It rusts, it fades, it breaks. People like you," he pointed at the advisor, "you measure worth in coins, in possessions, in price." His hand lifted my chin, forced me to look into his eyes. But I see true worth. I see someone who survived when the world tried to break her. I see someone who still carries kindness despite being shown only cruelty. I see, his voice broke slightly, I see a gift from the moon herself, priceless. He turned back to the hall. "If you disagree with my decision, Aldrich, there's the door. No one stops you from leaving. But as long as you live under my roof, you will treat Alara with the respect she deserves. Not because I say so, but because she is a human being. A human with more strength in her little finger than you have in your whole body." Silence. Heavy, dense, electric. Then Freya began to clap. Slowly, deliberately. Others followed. One by one, until the whole hall burst into applause. And I stood there, tears streaming down my face, my hand still in Kalen's. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. Chapter 5. Priceless. That night I couldn't sleep. A soft knock at my door. "Alara, are you awake?" Kalen's voice, gentle, questioning. "Yes." He entered wearing only a simple linen shirt and leather breeches. In the firelight he looked like a figure from old legends. A warrior. A king. "I wanted to make sure you were all right." "I don't understand," I whispered. "Why? What do you want from me?" Kalen sighed and sat on the bed's edge, careful to give me space. "May I tell you a story?" He told me of a raven he'd found as a boy. Broken wing. Starving. Abandoned. His brothers said to kill it. But he healed it, fed it, cared for it. One day it flew away. Just like that. And do you know what I felt? Joy. Because I didn't do what I did to get something back. I did it because it was right. Because healing something helpless is the only reason you need. Tears streamed down my face. But I'm not a bird. I'm a broken, worthless... "Worthless?" Kalen's eyes flashed. "Never say that again." His hand rose, hesitated, then gently touched my cheek. "I don't know who taught you that your worth could be measured by a price, but they lied." "How do you know?" "Because I look at you," he said simply. "I see how you help Freya, though your hands shake. I see how you make children laugh, though you're still learning to smile. I see..." His voice roughened. "I see a woman who has the right to live, to laugh, to be loved." That last word hung between us. Loved. Kalen's thumb wiped away a tear. "Yes, loved. I thought you bought me to own me." He shook his head. "I didn't buy you, Alara. I freed you. There was no other way to get you off that market. But you..." His hand slid to mine, intertwining our fingers. You belong to no one. Not to me, not to anyone. You belong to yourself. Something broke in me, or perhaps healed. I want to thank you, I began, trembling. I want to show you. No. His voice was firm but loving. You owe me nothing. Not your body, not your gratitude, not your love. Nothing. But what if I want to? The words escaped before I could stop them. What if I want to give you all of that? Not from debt, but because you're the first person who treated me like a human? Kalen closed his eyes as if fighting something, then opened them, and what I saw there made my heart stumble. Longing, desire, but also restraint, respect. Alara, he said slowly, if you want this, if you truly want me to touch you, to hold you, to see you as more than someone I protect, then you must tell me. Not from gratitude, not from duty, but because you truly want it. I looked at him. This man who'd been a stranger, who'd pulled me from hell, who'd given me back dignity I'd thought lost forever. I want it, I whispered. I want you! For a moment he didn't move. Then slowly, like approaching a shy creature, he leaned toward me. His lips touched mine, gentle, questioning, full of restrained passion. I didn't buy a slave, he whispered against my mouth. I found my queen. And you, Alara with the moonlight hair, you are priceless. That night became something sacred. His touches weren't what I'd feared. Not brutal, not demanding. They were worship. Every scar he kissed was a promise. Every whisper was a vow. Every tender movement was proof I was more than a price, more than a number, more than a thing. I was human, a woman, a queen in the eyes of a king who didn't want to own me, but wanted to belong to me. Epilogue. Reflection. 6 moons later. I stood at the window of the great hall, sun-watching snow fall gently on the pines. My hand rested on my belly, not yet swollen, but I knew. Freya had confirmed it yesterday. A life inside me. A new, innocent life that would never know what it meant to be in chains. What are you thinking? Kalen's arms wrapped around me from behind. His chin rested on my shoulder. I leaned into his warmth. How far I've come. He corrected. How far we've come. I turned in his arms, looked up at him. The scars were still there, on my skin, in my heart. But they no longer defined me. Kalen, do you believe people have a price? He considered. I believe the world tries to teach us we do. That we can be measured in gold, in usefulness, in what we produce or offer. And the world is wrong. His hand lifted my chin. You were sold for 10 gold pieces. I was born into wealth and power. But before the gods, before life, we are equal. Not in what we have, but in what we are. Human, souls, priceless. Priceless, I repeated, and the word no longer felt foreign. It felt like truth, like a vow, like a promise. Outside, the world awakened. Children laughed in the snow. Freya called for someone. Life continued. Imperfect, but beautiful. And I was no longer the broken slave from the market. I was Alara, beloved of Kalen, queen of this land, mother of a coming child. And above all, I was priceless. Not because someone told me, but because I finally believed it.